Well, let's talk about your book, because I remember you and I a few years back, we sat at a bar in out here in LA, and I asked you, hey, do you plan on writing another book? And at the time, I don't think they could have paid you enough money to write another book. I don't think you were interested in it. I don't think, I believe what you said was, you said what you needed to say, and there's really not much more to say from that. Here we are now, a handful of years later. You got a book coming out in is it November 11th?
Yeah, 11/11.
11/11.
Pre-orders stop October 31st. So still time. Get your autographed copy if you pre-order now. BischoffBook.com.
BischoffBook.com. And it's an incredible concept. But you have a book coming out now. Why? And it's with Guy Evans, who wrote the Nitro book, which is a gigantic piece of literature that I've only gotten about halfway through, and I've owned the book since it came out.
It's a dense book. It's a lot of information.
It is a difficult read to actually get the knowledge. If you just want to read it, yeah, you probably do it in a couple of weeks. But if you actually want to understand the knowledge, it's a lot in there. So what made now the right time to put out this book, and what encouraged you to decide to go on this process? Because it's not an easy task to write a book, especially when it's autobiographical.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I spoke to you, and that was a good, 5 years ago now, I think 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was, I was in LA working on a television project for A&E at that time. But, Guy Evans reached out to me because I was a big fan of his book and his work. And we had done a couple, speaking engagements together, 1 or 2, I think on StarCast, we did one, and really enjoyed him as a person and admired him as a professional. And Guy called me and said, hey, would you consider writing another book? And my first reaction was probably similar to the one I gave you, is I don't really have anything to talk about, which ironically was the first thing that crossed my mind when I was approached to do the first book. Is like, what am I going to write about? Fast forward, makes the New York Times bestseller list. So when Guy approached me and asked me if I'd be interested, I just said, Guy, what are you thinking? And Guy had been listening to the podcast and following me on social media. And he said, Eric, there's a sense of positivity and gratitude in a lot of what you say and do, and look, the podcast is what the podcast is, right? I could get a little salty from time to time, but for the most part, I'm very grateful for it all. And that comes through. And Guy picked up on it. And he goes, what if we covered the period of time from your last book to the present day? So 2006, 7 to 2022. And again, I thought about it. I said, man, I don't know what would I talk about? And I realized there's a fair amount to talk about and cover. But while I talk about the wrestling business, and that's kind of the backdrop from 2006 to 2022. It's really about what I've learned along the way, and how what I've learned has changed my perspective on my career and what I've accomplished and what it's taken me to get to that point. There are certain things that have happened to me, good, great, and not so great. But it's been that journey that's really helped me really appreciate my career a lot more than I probably ever did, even when I was right in the middle of the peak of it.
Do you jump into some of your TV experience as well in the book, or is it just mainly wrestling?
No, I talk a lot about, Bischoff Hervey Entertainment. Jason Hervey and I had we had a great run, Bischoff Hervey Entertainment from about 2003 till about 2014. Good solid 11 years. We were making money hand over fist. We were cranking out TV shows. We had great relationships with a lot of studio executives and network executives. It was great until it wasn't. And the TV business has changed a lot. And, we saw the handwriting on the wall. Jason is still a friend. I don't see him as much or talk to him as much, obviously, because we're not working together. But we parted on good terms. We knew what we had to do. And I'm grateful that we got out when we did. Television business is kind of getting crushed right now.
Yeah, so. And it's interesting to see even the streamers are struggling. Unless you're Disney Plus, It seems like everywhere is struggling to grow and really diversify.
Well, and for independent producers like Jason and I were, we would create ideas, we would pitch the ideas, and we would produce the ideas and deliver them to the network. So we were kind of a turnkey company in that regard. But going back to 2003 and all the way up until about 2012, the profit margin for us was very, very good. But as we saw about 2013, 14, as things got more competitive and streaming started to rear its ugly head just a little bit, not a lot, but as that started to evolve and more importantly, I think vertical integration, the days of the independent production companies we could see was fast disappearing because they were all getting bought up and acquired by bigger companies like Warner Media, for example. And we just decided it was time to get out because you couldn't make any money doing it, or not enough to justify it. Let's put it that way.